Okay, well, welcome everybody. As I said, I'm going to see if I'm going to try these from time to time and see if we can get these things working correctly, but I'm not sure why they are not. So I'm just going around on my different cameras. Sorry about this. Your screen may look blank. All right, well, all right, it's going to be all on me today. So anyway, but welcome. We'll give everybody a few minutes to jump in here. If you're watching, pop a comment in the chat and let us know where you're watching from. Had a great 4th of July weekend. And hi, Uta. How are you? Thanks for joining. That's good. I apologize for these technical difficulties. It's really quite annoying, but I mean, what are you going to do? Technology is great when it works, not so happy when it doesn't work. But anyway, I will show you things on the face camera, and I may periodically just try to get in. Hi, Diana. How are you? I'm going to try to get everything in and see if we can make it work. I'm just cutting this piece of fabric. I thought I had already done this. Hope everybody had a good 4th of July if you celebrate in the USA. We did. It was just kind of quiet this year, actually. We had my husband's sister in for 3 weeks, so that was kind of fun. Hi, Mary. Hi, Connie from Colorado, Scottsdale, Arizona. Sandra. Oh, hi, Sandra from Chattanooga, Oregon, Hearst, Texas, South Carolina. Great. Good to see all of you. Well, if you didn't hear me before, I want to just mention that I'm having some problems with I'm not sure whether it's the camera or the software. For some reason, I tend to think it might be the software because somebody else who does some YouTube lives was having some issues the other day. And I think I am having the same issues as well. And I'm not quite sure how to solve them on my own because earlier today when I was testing everything was working. So, hey, from South Carolina, I bet it's pretty hot down there. Hearst, Texas, I hope you are safe. I know the hurricane was coming your way. Netherlands, hi, Ivanka. How are you? Welcome. My sister and her husband are actually in Little Cayman right now. They were kind of holding their breath. They're both scuba divers, and they were waiting to see whether or not their trip was a go, and it was. Apparently the storm just skirted south or west of Little Cayman, and they were able to go, so we'll see. Hi from South Bend. Hi, Maureen, South Bend, Indiana. Oh, you're a new owner of the L890 QE. I bet you're loving it. That is such a beautiful machine. Hi from Philadelphia. Hi, Helen. Hi, Esther. And you know, while we're talking about that, one thing I do, because I see comments all the time in some of the Facebook groups and also on Instagram and things like that, talking about the difference between the L890, the original model, and the L890 QE. They both have the exact same functionality. Some people have said, oh, the QE is quieter, but honestly, I think that is because it's probably brand new to you and it's probably well oiled and everything else, because I know if I don't oil my machine often enough, it starts to sound a little bit on the loud side. Some people talk about the speed. I believe the speed of stitches per minute is exactly the same on the QE as it is on the original L890. So the difference with the QE was that gift with purchase bundle that Bernina included, which included the shearing foot, which keep your eye open. I am going to have a very interesting tip clip on the shearing foot coming. I think it's going to be posted this weekend, and it's not just for gathering. So that, yeah, I want you to tune in and see it, because I learned a lot of new things about the shearing foot as well when I did that. But the bundle included the shearing foot, the C27 clear foot, which you see on my machine all the time when I do classes and Serger Savvy. And also, I think it has the height compensation tool. Hi, Eva. Oh, from a wet day. I wonder, where are you? Mary, you traded in your Ovation and loving the 890. Yeah. Oh, yes, it's definitely quieter than the Ovation. The Ovation and the Triumph are good machines and everything else, but they are not as quiet as the L8 series is. It's just amazing the difference between them. Also, one other thing with the Bernina Sergers is that I can keep it on a bare table without a rubber mat under it, just a flat, regular table, and it doesn't shimmy around on the table, and it doesn't vibrate the way the other machines do, and that's across the board. Any of the brands, whether it's Juki, Janome, Pfaff, Baby Lock, any of those, they all have much higher vibration than the L8 series, so that is a big difference. So, but also with the QE, you got the bundle with Amanda Murphy's beautiful Bloom and Grow quilt, all the fabrics and the instructions, and so that was quite, and I think also it included the trolley, if I'm not mistaken. So that's just the difference. But I have seen a lot of information going back and forth of people wondering whether it does different stitches and all of that stuff. No, it doesn't. It has the same functionality as my L890, the original edition. So it does come, the one thing it does come with is that different shank on the foot where you can put the quilting guide in. But if you have one of the L8 series or L890 series that was before they did that shank, you can buy that, and I think it's only about $20. So that's nothing if you like to do quilting and use the guide so that you can do grid quilting and have your lines parallel. Super easy to do. Hi, Julie. Hi from California. Good to see you. So anyway, let's get down to cases here with Cork. This all came about last week or the week before, when a viewer sent me an email saying that she wanted to create the Elena tote bag with Cork. And she said, is it strong enough to use as the center panel or the side panels? And I was honest with her, and I said, you know what? I've never stitched on Cork before. So, and it's very popular. It's beautiful. And I know a ton of people use it and love it. And I've seen it in all kinds of projects. Hi from South Dakota. Hi, Shar. Julie, hi. Let's see, did I miss anyone? Helen from Missoula, Montana. How are you? Juanita from Philadelphia. South Bend, I think I said hello. I don't want to miss anyone. But anyway, so I was honest with her, and I said, I've never stitched on Cork, so I really couldn't answer her questions with any definite information that was, from experience. Hi, Lynn from Nebraska. And so I ran out that same day, and I bought some Cork, and I just have a little sample. I'm going to show it to you, and I'm going to test my cameras one more time to see if we can see, because my camera for my foot, my screen camera, and my table camera for showing shots, none of them are connecting anymore. Before, I had all but the table camera, so I do apologize for that, but I will do my very best by holding things up in front of the camera, and I think you can see it pretty well. I already had done some test stitching on this earlier. So anyway, so I went out last week and I bought a little roll, I think it was a fat quarter, of the cork. And the one that I bought was Sally Tomato. That's what they had in the local store. And hi from Michigan. Oh, Eva, you said you've been using it for years. Oh, great. I should consult you for any extra tips on it. So if you do have any tips, definitely jump in. But anyway, so I went out and bought it, and I was amazed. It's very pliable and soft, easy to manipulate. It almost reminds me of like an ultra suede, like a high quality ultra suede. And I didn't know whether, if manipulating it, when you look closely at it, you can see it's like in little half-inch strips that it's laid onto a backing. And this particular backing on mine is it has sort of a suede feel, or an ultra suede feel. But I was very surprised, number one, at how flexible it was. I thought it would be stiffer. And I think that's what made me sort of shy away from it, because I was always afraid that what if it cracks or anything else. But obviously I was not well informed on that because I hadn't tried it. But I was very impressed with it. And when I stitched samples of it for this is going to be my combo for an Elena tote, and you've heard me say it a million times, and I'll keep saying it. I always test everything on sample fabric first, because I don't want any surprises. And even if they're not bad surprises, even if I want to adjust a stitch length, which I did on this because I wanted it a little bit closer together, I want to do all of that on my sample fabric. So, as I say, I was pleasantly surprised. And I have mentioned in fact, I think it was in my post yesterday that we did for this, and it was a shot of the sample fabric. I just find it super interesting that on the L890, when I am stitching in covered chain stitch mode with decorative threads, this one has 3 12-weight threads in it, and I really wish my table camera was working so that you could see it. It's got a dark orange, a brighter orange, and then a yellow 12. They're all 12-weight threads, cotton 12-weight spaghetti by Wonderful in there, and they're all in the chain looper. And I had my stitch on stitch 24 on the L890, which is the narrow cover stitch with center and right needles in. If you prefer center and left needles, you could hit stitch 23 or whatever your machine asks for. Hi, Maltese from Phoenix. Hey. Eva said cracking sometimes is because of too much pressure. Piecing together scrap pieces is so fun. Yes, it is. From Montreal. Hi, Linda. Well, just to get off topic for a second, I was just talking to my sister, and she was saying that her daughter and a friend and a group of girls are all getting together actually in Old Quebec and Old Quebec City, and they're going up there for a girls' weekend, and we were up there for a cousin's weekend last fall, and it was really beautiful and fun. I hope it's a little bit cooler in Montreal than it is here. It's been mighty sticky and hot, and but that's summertime. We'll be moaning and groaning about the cold weather. But getting back to the cork, I have found that in covered chain stitch mode, no matter what I have in my chain looper for decorative threads, I could have 1 8-weight, 2 8-weights, 3 12-weights, 2 12-weights. For some reason, I never have to change the default settings on the tension. I just leave them where they are. The only thing that I might change is my stitch length, according to what the fabric is that I'm using, and also how close I want the stitches or far away. And also, if I'm doing gathering, I might crank up that differential feed, but I never touch the default settings on the tensions. It's really, it's great because it's super easy to work with. Not having to fiddle around with them. But in overlock mode, I change them all the time depending on how many threads I'm using and the look I want and all of that stuff. So that is kind of interesting. But also, somebody had asked me just this morning about working with cork. And did I use any stabilizer on the back? And in the pattern, the Elena Tote pattern, which I should have over here, but I was so busy fiddling with my camera, so I didn't bring it over. I'll grab it. They asked about using stabilizer on the center panel because of the stitching on it. And typically, if I'm using a quilting weight cotton or even a linen, on one of my totes I used a chambray, which was a little bit heavier than a quilting weight cotton. I always use a stabilizer, a fusible woven stabilizer, and I just use SF101, which is made by Pellon. It's not expensive and it does the job, and it doesn't make the fabric super stiff. Very easy to find that. I'm sure your local quilt stores or fabric stores or the chain stores carry it as well. But on the cork, no. You can see on the back side of this, it's just the fabric, the cork itself. I did not use any stabilizer. There was no puckering and no problem at all with it. So no, I did not use it. If you wanted to, now on the bag itself, I will have foam inside for the interfacing, but that's just to maintain the bag itself and keep the shape of it, but not for stability when I'm doing any decorative stitching. Hi, Nancy. Oh, let's see, running a little late in Michigan. That's perfectly fine. You didn't hear me talk about my dilemma with my cameras, but before we do this, I'm going to give it one more try because I'd really like you to be able to see me stitching on this. So stay with me. Your camera may go black. Or your screen may go black. It's not you, it's me testing my cameras. I'm going to just see if I can get them to work. Nope. Let's try this one. Nope. I apologize. I just don't. I think it's the software, though, because as I said, I heard somebody else saying she was having a problem with it the other day as well. I've got to get some technical expertise in here to help me with it. But anyway, so I wanted to show you, I did some flat locking on the, to attach it to what will be my side panels, and that is that orange and yellow batik fabric, which I thought was pretty with the cork. And right now I have the same color, that 12 weight spaghetti thread, cotton thread in my lower looper. I have Serger cone thread in my left overlock needle. My stitch width dial or cutting width dial is on 9 for the widest one. I have my MTC dial, which is the micro thread control dial, which I have it on +2. And what that does is if you watch your stitch finger, you'll see when you turn that to the plus side, you can either go +1 or +2. It will move the stitch finger just a tiny bit more to the right to help widen the stitch. And you'll see me using it in the minus direction in my shearing foot tip clip, which I think will be posted this weekend. And what that does is it brings the stitch with, or the stitch finger in just a little more to the left and closer to the needles to keep loops from hanging off the edge of very sheer or fine fabric, things like chiffon or organza. And it just keeps that stitch looking neat and tidy, and the loops hug the edge of the fabric the way they should. Nancy says, I would never have thought about this stitching on cork, but it looks just beautiful. We'll definitely be trying this. I love the look of the flat lock stitch. Yes, as I said, I was very pleasantly surprised. And what I'm going to do is I will stitch first in flat lock mode because that's what my machine is set up for right now. Then I'll just convert over to cover stitch mode and add in a couple of more threads. And actually, I want to try an 8-weight thread, and this will be an on-camera experiment because I haven't used the 8-weight on the cork, so we'll see how it does. But I'm just going to grab that right now, and I will be right back. If anyone has any comments, put them in the chat so that we can talk about it. Okay, I grabbed my Elena tote, the cover of that, just so you can see. And you can get that in print. Also, you can get it digitally as well from my store on my website, gailpatrice.com. Also, we will be adding in a QR code, I think, on that for, and I think it might already be on it, for using Thread Fusion, the little stand where you can blend your threads together. That's the large. And we have the universal size as well. Linda says, oh, what size needle do I use? Linda, I just used a 9014 ELX 705. That is my go-to needle most of the time. I'm seeing that some people use a Microtex needle with cork, but that also might have been if they were using their sewing machine. I have not tried the Microtex on a serger. So, but I used the ELX 9014 and it worked fine. I didn't have any problem with it at all. Julie in Fresno, what am I coming to authorize sewing back in Fresno? I'd have to look at my calendar to tell you the truth. I don't want to say yes because I'm not 100% sure, and I'm really bad at keeping those dates in my head, and I don't have my calendar with me right now. Nancy says she wonders how difficult it would be to run ribbon through using the cork. I don't think it would be difficult at all because really you have just as much room. And as I said, this particular cork is flexible. And I think some of the other brands are as well. I don't think it would be difficult at all, to tell you the truth. I think it would be pretty darn easy. Now, I also, since you can't see the foot, I am going to be stitching with my fabric wrong sides together. And on batik, let's face it, it's kind of 6 of one, a half a dozen of another, of which one you decide is your wrong side on it because they look so similar. Some you can tell a little bit more than others. But I'm going to be stitching with my fabric wrong sides together. And one other tip that I think is a good thing to remember, and it is in the Elena tote pattern as a suggestion, is if you've done decorative stitching that runs off to the side where your side panel is going to be attached. This one just is going more vertically. But if you're running your fabric off, what I found is that when I stitched to flat lock or reverse flat lock with the center panel on top as it was going through the machine, sometimes what would happen is little nubs of that thread that were on the edge of the center panel would kind of pop through and poke through on the flat lock stitching, and it kind of looked, sometimes if you're very careful you can go back and kind of snip them close, but they're still there, and and it doesn't look quite as nice. So what I have been doing recently is I stitch with my side panel on top, whether it's right sides together or wrong sides together, it doesn't matter, and that way it just keeps everything looking really nice. So I'm going to do this with my wrong sides together. Let me just get this. This isn't cut super straight, but I'll just trim off that excess edge on it. So I've got here's my right side of this, right side of my cork. Let me try one more time to see if we can get that foot camera working. This is so crazy. I'm going to try plugging it in to one different port and see if I can get that to make a difference. Hang on a second. Stay with me. I'm going to try I've got a bunch of different ports. If anyone else has ever had this problem and figured out how to solve it, I would love to hear from you, because this is so annoying. And I can usually hear the camera click on too when it is grabbing what it's supposed to grab. Let me just try one other place. Nope. Okay, so it's going to have to be all me, and I apologize for that. So, all right, so I'm going to stitch this with wrong sides together. I am on the 890. I am on stitch 24. However, I saved my settings on this so that I like them, and with a 2-thread flat lock with 12-way threads, I have my left needle, actually they're both on the default, no they aren't. My default setting on the 2-thread flat lock is different. I have my left needle on 2.6 for the tension and 6.0 for the lower looper. I have my upper looper converter engaged or hooked in. That's a little thing that you flip around, and you've seen me do that. I have my stitch length on 2.5, but I'm going to tick that down. I want it a little bit closer. I'm going to bring my stitch length down to 1.9. I tried that yesterday and I kind of liked it. So, and I have my seam guide on, which I really like too. That holds everything and keeps everything in place. So let's try this out and see how it looks. Let's see. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any comments or anything before I start stitching. Okay, good. Alrighty, so let's give this a go. Let me first put my foot down and chain off so I can grab those threads. Always, you've heard me say this in a decorative stitch class, when you start stitching with anything other than serger cone thread, anything heavier than that, I always like to hold onto my thread chain behind the foot just until it gets going and takes 3 or 4 stitches in the fabric itself. The heavier threads just need a little bit of help to get going on that, and that eliminates stitch stacking at the beginning. That's where your stitches all kind of bunch up and jumble up, and you get kind of that glob of thread there. So let me just stitch off a little bit so that we can get a thread chain. Okay, All right, good. So stitching, fabric side up, cork side down, wrong sides together. And I might as well move the camera out of my way since it's not cooperating. I'm going to just get this under the foot a little bit, holding my thread chain, and okay, I can let go. I'm just chaining off. Okay, it looks great. The stitch looks wonderful. And I'm going to show you a little trick that I use that I think is really kind of a good thing to do with using cork. So here it is. I haven't pulled the threads yet or the stitch flat yet. Here's the opposite side. You can see here's the serger cone thread. Let me get it up here so you can see. Serger cone thread on that side. So let's pull this flat, and now I'm going to show you something, and I'll show you my little workaround for this. And of course it pulled completely flat on this one, but yesterday when I did this, here it is, perfectly flat. And here is the wrong side of that. But yesterday what happened was when I went to pull the stitching flat, the cork kind of rolled under a little bit because even though it's very flexible and soft, it's not cotton. So it was kind of rolled under and kind of looked yucky. So what I did was I took a wooden skewer. I think this is like a kebab skewer, thin, a little bit thicker than a toothpick certainly, but I just went gently under the cork and kind of smoothed it out underneath there, because even if I pressed it, it's not fabric. I think it would look a little bit bulky and not wonderful. So what I did, and this is where I really wish I had my other camera, I just went under and just kind of encouraged it to move over a little bit with that skewer. The wood is kind of good because it doesn't tend to snag the fabric, and it's not going to break the stitching, which is a pain. You'd have to redo it if that happened. But here is the stitching with a stitch length on 1.9 for the flat locking. And if again you are wondering about that MTC dial, if you have a baby lock serger, if you open the front door of it, you see a little dial that you can move. It's like a half a clock. You can move it left to lower and move that stitch finger narrower a little bit closer to the needles, but you can also turn it to the right. I don't think it has as much play in it as the Bernina does. The Bernina definitely, if you move that MTC dial, will move that stitch finger. You'll see it move right or left. And the reason I like to put it on the +2 when I'm flat locking or reverse flat locking is it just widens out the stitch a tiny bit more. And it just allows me to pull those threads and stitching flat. So that is the thinking behind that, just to get the widest one. And with the 9mm overlock stitch to begin with, it's beautiful, but that even enhances it more. So that is your flat locking, and you can see I didn't have to do anything fancy or special to it, but this will be the look of the bag. These will be the side panels, but I did want to do my testing on it. So now what I'm going to do, since I've already tested with 3 12-weight threads in that narrow cover stitch, I'm going to do a little bit of stitching next to it with an 8-weight thread in the chain looper because I want to see what that looks like. So I am going to convert my machine over which is super fast to do. And what I like to do when I want to lock down my upper looper, I'm cutting my threads to get them out. What I like to do to lock down that upper looper is I turn the dial on the inside to the lock position. Then I step on my foot control, and I don't know if you could hear that little click or not, but that means that the upper looper is locked down underneath the machine on the inside, because that's the one that comes up and over your fabric, and with the cover hem table on, it would bump into it and knock it off. But that's the way I like to do that, and I think that way you're not forcing anything or anything else. You can do it with your foot control, or if you want to turn your hand wheel towards you, that will also lock it down, but it's just real quick to do it with your foot control. So I'm doing that. I am going, I'll move my needle from overlock position. I'm going to put in, I think I'm just going to do some chain stitching just for a different looking stitch on this. So I'll just use one needle. Also, I'm being lazy on camera, quite frankly. And make sure I'm going to just reroute my threading up to the cover chain stitch positions for the needles. And you know, you can have on this machine, you can have your needle for a chain stitch in cover chain stitch mode. The needle itself can be in any position as long as the thread is in that left chain threading route for the tension. The machine doesn't know where your needle is. And that is a question that comes up all the time with people about that. You know, do you have to have your needle in the left position since the thread has to go through the left tension threading route? No, 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 no. I have done this for ages, and it makes no difference. And that is the same on the Ovation and Triumph as well. The machine doesn't know where the needle is, but as long as you have your thread going through the correct tension threading route, that is the thing that is most important. So, and since I think I'm going to put my light back on, I always shut my light off on the machine when I'm on camera because it glares, but since I can't use this camera today anyway, I could turn it back on so I can actually see where the eye of the needle is. There we go. Okay. So, I'm going to take out my 12-weight thread, and I have a bright orange 8-weight cotton thread for the chain looper. Just winding this up. You know, it's funny because I don't know about you, but every once in a while, if I pull my thread off and I've got a big long thread chain and I'm winding it up, if I lose my grip on the spool or something and it falls on the floor, the one thing I have learned is let go of the thread so that you don't have, you know, 20 feet to rewind. Just let go of it and it won't be so bad. So, okay, so here is my bright orange 8-weight thread. It's 50% heavier than 12-weight thread. I'm putting that in the chain looper, and I'm going to go to stitch number 16, which is the chain stitch. And I think I mentioned this in a class that I did on decorative stitches. When you get a new spool of decorative thread, the manufacturer typically tucks in the end of the thread into the thread that is wound on the spool. And oftentimes it creates a little bend or a crease in that last half inch of the thread. Cut it off because that bend makes it hard for the air threading to pull the thread through. It kinks it up, and it doesn't work as well. So just cut that off and I think you'll have better luck with that. So let's see. Here we go. It's all through. And typically 8-weight cotton thread and 8-weight rayon will go through your air threading tubes easily. The only one that I have found with the rayons is ones that have a metallic filament in them, and there's nothing wrong with your machine. I think the metallic filament makes it harder for the thread to bend as it goes through the air threading tubes in the machine. So sometimes you need a thread cradle for that. But this is just a regular cotton. So I'm going to put my stitch length. I really like a longer stitch length in chain stitching with decorative thread because I think it just makes a really pretty stitch. So the default setting on the stitch length is 3.0. I'm going to crank it up to about 3.6. I'm leaving my differential feed on 1 or N because the cork is not stretchy and it's not going to buckle under it. I've locked my knife down. I brought my cutting width dial down to 5 so that the door or the table on the machine closes. And I am going to start stitching on this. Now, typically, I always test it on something else. And by the way, here is the actual piece of cork that I'll be using as a center panel, which brings me to another point before I go to the machine. I'm kind of jumping all over. When I got the pre-cut roll of cork, in the pattern, if you're doing decorative stitching, I said cut double the length, and you're doing your front and back center panels together. Because the rolls of cork are shorter, you have to do that center panel, cut them separately, and do them like that, and that's not an issue. I see some scrap fabric that I'll grab. I just want to bring up the chain looper thread on scrap fabric before I go on to this, just to test it. And I gave somebody a business card the other day, and I was looking at my business card holder, and it's starting to look like it's all done. I've had it for a while. I actually bought it in Thailand, of all places. But I think it's getting kind of yucky looking. So with these smaller pieces of cork that I'm using just for testing, I think I'm going to turn this into a business card holder. So, because I hate to waste it. All right, I'm just going to test this and bring that chain looper thread up to the top. This is just scrap fabric that I have. And I'm going to lower my presser foot pressure down to 1 so that I can curve and manipulate my fabric easily and maneuver it under the machine. So let's look and see what this looks like. If you haven't seen the locking fork, these are available. I'm pulling behind the needle thread, pulling it forward, cutting, pulling my fabric out at 10 o'clock, and let's take a look. Ooh, this looks really nice. Even here it is, right here. So let's go on to the cork and see how it does. And here are my 2 narrow cover stitches. And as you know, I will be stitching with the fabric or the cork wrong side up so that that decorative chain looper thread shows on the right side. So let's get that under the foot. Now this is just a short piece, but that's okay. Under the needle. And I always hold, you can see one of my hands, and my other hand is on the other side to help the fabric get going. And I'm going to grab that thread behind the foot as well to let it get going. No muss or fuss. Now in chain stitching, in cover chain stitch mode, The machine typically will hold that chain when you pull off the fabric. But oh, this is beautiful. Hang on a second. Let me just trim these little threads off before I show you. You can see it looks beautiful. And that 3.6 stitch length is really, really nice. I think it kind of reminds me a little beads or pearls on top of the fabric. So it's a pretty look. Let's do another line of stitching. I'm holding the thread chain now and my edges of fabric. Amazing how easily it handles the cork. Locking fork. Presser foot is up. Pull behind my needle thread. Snip. Pull my fabric out at about 10 o'clock. And cut the chain looper thread, and it's locked. There's another line of stitching. So both of these are my chain looper stitching. And it's pretty. And again, I didn't change any of the tension settings or anything else. And you can manipulate. I say I like a longer stitch length. That's me. If you like a little bit shorter for the look that you're doing, or you're doing it on something that's a lighter weight fabric, then you might want to shorten it up. So that's just personal preference on my part, but there's no hard and fast rule when it comes to the stitching length at all on that. So that's all good. On this one, the one that I showed you, that is going to be the actual piece. I think I might add in a window up here and also over here. And the thing, I was thinking about this at first, and I thought, I don't think I'll do a window on cork because I don't think it'll turn nicely with a facing. But then I thought, wait a minute, cork does not fray. I can just cut a clean circle and not have to finish the edge at all. It's kind of like cutting on vinyl, that you don't have to finish the edge at all. It's not going to go anywhere, and it's not going to get ragged looking at all. So I am going to do that, and I will update you on that as I make progress with it. So are there any questions at all about that? Anything, anybody, or any tips that anybody else has? As I said, I am brand new to cork. I bought my first piece last week, so I am a novice with cork. And if anyone has any suggestions for fun projects with it, or things that they have found that worked or don't work well with cork, I am all ears, and I like to share it in this venue with everybody because we all learn from each other, and it's just fun to find out what everybody else is doing. But as I said, this I think I'm going to turn into a business card holder. Oh, and one other thing that I found, which I thought was also interesting, that is different from leather or vinyl, was when I was testing different color threads on this cork. And if I didn't like them, I pulled it out, and I really thought I would have very obvious holes in the cork when I pulled it out. But you know, even with a 9014 needle, which is a good size needle, it's not a really tiny needle, I found that the needle marks showed more on the wrong side than on the right side of the cork. And I think because of the texture of the right side of the cork, it kind of disguises it, or it just sort of heals itself over and closes those holes. But that was also a really good thing that I found out about cork. So I would always say test everything first on your scrap fabric, and if you don't like it and you rip it out and it showed, who cares, because it's a sample. But that was a very happy discovery on my part with cork. So I was very pleased to find that out. And that was on the cork that I used. Now, I don't know if that is true across the board with other brands. This was Sally Tomato cork. And there are other good ones also. But before I do a blanket statement on it, I'd say test it just to make sure you can't see holes if you want to rip that stitching out. So just test it first to find out. Let me just make sure we don't have any other comments coming up. I am going to be, next week, let me just update you on that too. I am going to be in Waukesha, Wisconsin at So Much More. This is their sewing summer camp, which really sounds like fun. I'd love to go to a summer camp for sewing. And I'll be doing a 2-day presentation there. So if you're in that neighborhood and you can sign up, I'm not sure if it's sold out. I know the tickets sold quite quickly for it, but sometimes people have last minute things that come up and they might have a last minute opening. So if you're interested and you're in that area, you could certainly get yourself at least on a wait list to find out. But I will be there next, so I'm looking forward to that. I haven't been to Wisconsin now for a couple of years, so that'll be kind of fun. Also, I didn't mention it. I usually mention it earlier. As you know, I am a Bernina ambassador. I do not receive any commission on sales of machines, software, or any of their other products. But I do have the ambassador coupons. And if you were thinking about buying a machine, a sewing machine, Serger, or software, and also for Burnett too, any purchase of $1,000 and up is eligible for that $100 thank you rebate from Bernina Corporate. That would have to go forward from today for the next 30 days. But if you are making a purchase and you would like to have a coupon, shoot me an email, gail@gailpatrice.com. Usually I put this under my table camera, but it's gail@gailpatrice.com, and send me your information. But you do need to send in your proof of purchase, your receipt for that. So it would be from today going forward for 30 days. And Bernina will send you a $100 thank you check. It's not a gift certificate for more merchandise. It's $100 cash. So it's great. And then you can come and spend it on my website. So anyway, but yes, I do have those. So I'll need your mailing address also when you send that, and just tell me what you purchased, what the date of your purchase was, and I'll let you know if it is eligible. But that's for Bernina as well as Burnett machines, software, sewing machines, Sergers. It doesn't matter. Any purchase $1,000 and up is eligible for that. So also, you have the locking forks. Those are in my store. I've got them in red and blue. They're both exactly the same other than color. Eva said the cork accents on any project with decorative stitching is a focal point. Don't feel like you have to put decorative stitching on your whole project. Use it for pocket trim. Excellent idea. Yeah, with decorative stitching or any kind of embellishment at all, I haven't done the class for a while, but I used to do a class quite frequently on sewing machine embellishments called It's All About Embellishment, which was the name of my book that I had in print for a long time. Now you can download it digitally from my store. But I used to always say one of the key elements when you're doing any kind of embellishment, whether it's on your serger, decorative stitches on your sewing machine, embroidery, handwork, anything, know when to say when. Because you don't want to overload people visually with things, because then it kind of muddles the look of your beautiful stitching. And every stitch can be executed beautifully, look perfect. But when you've got so much stuff to look at, a lot of it loses the visual power, simply because it's just like visual overload on that. So pick and choose what you want to do. And my rule of thumb when I'm doing any embellishing on projects is I'll start off with my idea, and I might do a little less than what I have in mind, but then I'll do it. I'll put it on the table or put it on a dress form, stand back and take a look and say, is it enough right now, or does it need more? But you can always add more stuff to it. But say it with embroidery or decorative stitching on your sewing machine, you know that can be a bear to rip out. So I'd rather do it a little at a time and add as needed versus not have to rip out things and possibly mar the fabric. So that is my rule of thumb. So Eva, that's a good suggestion. Also, I'm trying to think what else is going on. I don't have any Zoom classes scheduled as of right now for August, but that could change. So stay tuned to my YouTube channel. You know I always do an announcement for that. And Eva said, audition anything is so important. Yeah. So, but stay tuned. And if there's anything else you would like to see me do in Serger Savvy or on Serger Tip Clips, let me know. I do read all of your suggestions, and I use a lot of them in future tip clips. Or, as I said today, this all came about from somebody asking me about Cork last week. So, it was great, and I was very glad because it kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone too, which is kind of important. Not every single fabric or technique or whatever will appeal to you, but you'll always learn something from it. So it does pay to kind of move out of your comfort zone. And so experimenting on Cork for me was very valuable. So thank you very much for pushing me into a whole new sphere of working with a different type of fabric. I guess Cork, I guess in this venue it would qualify as calling it a fabric, and I understand that most cork is imported from Portugal. So that's kind of one of those interesting fun facts. I read that someplace when I was looking up some tips and things about cork for myself, and I had no idea that Portugal was a big hub for using or growing cork, but apparently it is. So I think we are just about at the 1 hour mark. Did anyone have any other questions before we sign off? Or if you think of something after I stop recording with this and you want to shoot me an email, go ahead and do it. But keep an eye out for my tip clip coming up this weekend on the shearing foot, and that's SHIRRING. And it's not just for gathering, which I found fascinating, and I'll explain why it works so well for other types of fabric. Oh, Glenda says she has noon Central Time. Okay, yep. But, oh, Susie, hey, how are you? She said you're going to a cork farm in Portugal. Hey, you know what? Post photos, Susie, if you do go, and if they have any, demos of how it's created, I would love to see that. Eva says that Sally Tomato has a nice article on cork. The drying process is fascinating. Linda says, thank you. Yes, definitely. I would love to see that. I'm always fascinated about the manufacturing of different things. You know, like whether it's needles or some of these specialty fabrics and things. It's very, very interesting to hear that. And I have never taken any textile science classes or anything. So all of that information is always really new for me. And it's just fun to know about. And I know you're all probably just about as passionate about fabric and thread and stitching as I am, so it's kind of fun to know. But I think now we are over the 1 hour mark, so I will sign off, and thank you all for joining me. And as I said, if you think of questions after I stop recording, just shoot me an email. I will get back to you quickly. Susie says, I can come. I have a feeling that probably it's going to interfere. I have to go. I am going to be in Denver, or outside of Denver, in August. My niece is getting married. I think I've mentioned this to people, that she is getting married outside of Denver, and we're going to be up at 12,000 feet for this wedding. So that should be interesting. But I think it'll be fun too, and really beautiful. When will this be available after to watch? Once I click off of the recording for this, it will, I think, automatically show up on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Gail Yellen. It'll show up, and Elena, who is my website guru and technical guru, that's who I named the pattern for, will do a better thumbnail for this. But it should be available up on my YouTube channel, if not immediately, then very shortly afterward today. So, but thank you all for joining me. I am going to work very hard to find out what the issue is with my cameras, but I think it's the software, because when I tested them in something else, they all worked and showed up on the screen. So I do think it's a software issue that I have to get squared away with somebody who is more technologically knowledgeable than I am. So, but thank you all. Enjoy it. Stay safe. If you're anywhere near the storm systems and the hurricanes, stay cool. People can get really overheated very quickly in this kind of heat and humidity. So please watch that. Drink a lot of water. And I'll look forward to seeing you next month too on YouTube Live. But I'll see you before then on my YouTube Serger Tip Clips. Thanks so much. Happy sewing and searching.